What did you like about this NVIDIA quarter, and what's just lacking in your view?
Actually, Brian, I liked most of it. I disagree that we've seen signs of a slowdown. Right now for their next fiscal year, after this enormous growth this year, the street's expecting about 30% growth top and bottom line. I expect that to be beaten, and I expect that to be beaten significantly. And with a stock here that trades at only 19 times next year's earnings, which I think are low, I think whoever says it's a value stock, whether it be Jensen Huang or anybody else, I think they're actually right.
Paul, you bring up a good point. I love opposing views. That's why we have you on here. You always give it to us straight. Is it good enough? And I can't even believe I'm saying this about NVIDIA. I mean, it's gotten so big and it's so important to the chain that this company is only growing the top line by 30% plus. Or is this a market still stuck in the past with NVIDIA and they want to see those 50, 60, 100% growth rates that they were delivering?
Well, we'll get that, Brian, for a couple more quarters. They just guided to a quarter well above the street, but that's pretty much standard fare for them. And that indicates that this next quarter is going to have about 100% growth year to year. So it's a acceleration in sequential and year to year growth. So we'll see what happens. But I, again, think that the numbers are lower. And I felt very good about the gross margin, 75%. Guiding towards another 75%. And the fact that we now have a very big CPU business, in addition to GPUs with the Vera platform, this could be really exciting. I think it's very important. When they talk about returning capital to shareholders, I never really care about a dividend for a tech company. That usually is the death sentence. But the continued stock buybacks, and the fact that they've really sprinkled the infield, as you said before, Brian, with a number of investments, and these are billions of dollars investments in private and public companies. Like, for example, I cover all of the neo clouds formerly, and they have a big stake in CoreWeave and Iran and Nebius. And what they plan to do over time, and maybe they get a valuation multiple lift if they're successful, is they are trying to build well beyond the GPUs, an entire AI ecosystem, so they control more and more of the AI data centers, just like Apple did with the walled garden. And if they become indispensable like that, I think there's a lot of room on the upside for this stock.
With that one, when will Nvidia hit a $6 trillion market value?
Well, that's a math problem. Let's see, we're at about 188 net income over the last 4 quarters. 6 trillion is about $250 a share. There's about 24 billion shares out there. And let's assume a 30P ratio. So it's about 200 billion in net income. It could be within this year. It could be in the next 2 quarters.
And you think
that's
it's
if
likely
the market
to happen.
gives them credit.
But you think it's likely to happen, right?
It is likely to happen.
Yes. I'm sorry, that was my question. Is it likely to happen? 6 trillion this year?
It is likely to happen. You're definitely correct. And just think about it. It's also actually changing the type of investors it's going after. If you look at the volatility and the options, people are trading the options on NVIDIA. That's how they're making money. But as they start paying dividends, they're doing 80 billion with a stock buyback and 25 cents in dividends. It's going to be a growth stock with a good dividend, kind of like the way we look at Apple, probably in the next 5 years, but you want to have the growth stock element.
Other than NVIDIA, which chip and memory stocks do you really like?
Well, now you've got to look at options in terms of what else is going to supplant the GPU or what else is out there. But demand is outstripping supply. So companies like AMD and Intel have a lot of upside. And then there are new chip companies. Their job is not to make really small chips. They're making dinner plate size wafers. Cerebras, for example, is putting and loading up chips in another way so that you get a lot of efficiency. And of course, you got to look at Google with the TPUs, which are revolutionary, which is in the next set, as I've said before in the show, like above GPUs is the TPUs, the tensor processing units.
$91 billion, plus or minus 2% in the second quarter. It was like almost the whisper number for the sell side and the buy side, but not enough, and why is that?
Hey, look, I think that the growth at this scale is just unprecedented. I don't think the market's ever seen anything like it. And I think you think about traditional semi-investors, the playbook is to sell this type of growth, right? Because it's not sustainable. The margins have peaked. But I think if you really look at what's going on at the driver of the driver, like what's going on in the end demand, I think it's like really phenomenal in terms of agentic AI really taking off. The time of work or like time of task is expanding instead of being one shot or the agent working for a few minutes. I think we're going to go towards like months of work, and that requires like a lot of compute to have an agent go off and like complete a task and think and be persistent. And then this other thing is I think that scaling laws continue to hold. Like the frontier models are getting better. The more compute you throw at it, the better they get, and you actually save money by being on the frontier because it doesn't go through so many rabbit holes in terms of trying to complete your task. So I think if you look at like the end demand, it's actually very encouraging, and I think we're climbing a wall of worry here as a result.
So the thing that I was trying to digest throughout the call is with the data points that Jensen Huang and Colette Kress put forward as evidence of that, right? The scaling laws and the dollar per token. And they go to this $1 trillion figure, which I think they clarified is Blackwell Rubin, and it's for calendar year 2025 to 2027. And it's basically a backlog. Right, but the main overarching point is that they would argue that NVIDIA's own growth is trending ahead of even the hyperscale capex growth. How do you model for that? Like, is that the math that you would do?
Yeah, one of the things that was really encouraging, I think, of the quarter is that I actually broke out like hyperscale versus the enterprise and sovereign. And so, I think the bear case is that, NVIDIA can't outgrow the hyperscale CapEx numbers. But there's all this new TAM that's emerging that's not hyperscale. And, I think they continue to do well in hyperscale, but there's also new areas of agentic enterprise adoption. I think you talk to financial services firms, they're adopting a lot of this end demand that NVIDIA is producing, and so I think that plus robotics that's on the to come in the future. I think that allows them to see not be bracketed in this like hyperscale kind of compute paradigm here.
Tony, slightly unusual situation, but I spoke to Jensen at some length on Monday prior to earnings. But actually, a lot of what he said about the demand-supply equation was very prescient, salient. Just listen to what he said.
We have the largest supply chain in the world. Our partners have done a great job securing supply for us, and so all of the pieces go together. The silicon photonics is lined up, everything is all lined up. It's just that the demand is much greater than the overall capacity of the world.
What do you make of NVIDIA earnings? It seems like they're crushing it, but the bar is just so high and they've already gotten so big.
That's right. They did crush it. They'll continue to crush it. The highlight of the earnings yesterday was Jensen Huang dunking on the competition. He made a point to dunk on AMD and Broadcom by saying there's an entire segment of his business where they don't have any competition. Apart from the companies that dabble in their own chips, the entire rest of the market is 100% NVIDIA. Then he proceeded to dunk on the CPU companies, Intel and AMD, by talking about the fact that in a year, they're going to grow their standalone CPU business from nothing to 20 billion. And then he ended by dunking on Cerebras by saying that the market for hyperspeed inference is actually tiny, in spite of the fact that he's also in that market. So NVIDIA is doing really well. It's the core of the AI trade, and it'll continue to be the core of the AI trade.
The Jalen Brunson of corporate America, just dumping on everyone. Joe, if I can bring you in, I actually want to kind of relate this to SpaceX, because it's a point that Mandeep Singh made of Bloomberg Intelligence that I thought was good. You have SpaceX valued at $2 trillion. It's going to be priced, theoretically, if it gets there, at 80 times sales. It's growing at something like 20%, whereas you have NVIDIA priced at 17 times sales, or forward earnings, and it's growing at 85%. How do you digest with these giant tech companies coming to market about what you're actually willing to pay?
Well, Danny, it's astounding. And then you put OpenAI and Anthropic on the heels of that, and their growth rates are extraordinary as well. I mean, just highlighting something else that Gil, or adding on to what Gil was talking about, like the networking business inside of NVIDIA was lost in all the conversation. They're at $15 billion in revenue for their networking equipment. That puts them on a run rate equal to Qualcomm. I mean, and that's just an also-ran business inside of NVIDIA. So Jensen talked about the AI factory at the GTC, and it's coming to life.
By the way, so they're expected to have $370 billion in annual sales. So at $5.4 trillion, they're only trading at 14.5 times.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sales, and about 20 times forward earnings,
yes,
right?
You're right.
On a 12-month basis.
Again, compared to SpaceX, which would be 80 times sales.
Joe, Jensen continues to dangle, though, this $1 trillion figure for revenue, right? Is that 25 through 27? Are they on track to hit that?
All signs point to yes, Matt. I mean, it is astounding that Jensen can just trot out this crazy number that year over year is 100% bigger than he said the year before, and he's on a runway to hit it. And Matt, I think the other interesting component here about their moat is the lockdown that they have on TMC production. The moat is not silicon. The moat is the packaging, and as a consequence, it's clean rooms is where the packaging occurs. They are consuming almost 2/3 of all the packaged chips coming out of TSMC. So if you're trying to get Google chips, if you're trying to get Trainium chips from Amazon, how are they going to make them?
They all get made in the same place, which is the most interesting thing there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the supply chain risk within that.
If you are a student of technology history, finding yourself in a situation where demand is vastly outpacing your ability to supply, even in a world where supply chains are doubling or quadrupling per annum, which is what he went on to say, that's been an enviable position. But right now, it's not moving the needle for this stock.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the market is looking at relative earnings growth and where the bottlenecks are. So capital's flowing there. But at some point, you look at the multiple for Nvidia, it's like really attractive. And in addition, like there's a point where for the growth, it is like tremendous. Looking at the PEG ratio, the expectation. So if the growth is durable, I think you can see multiple expansion actually from these levels, and that's pretty exciting for holders. And in addition, like it is the platform that a lot of this AI inferencing is going to be built on. I think inferencing is going to be much bigger than training, and training is also still growing because of scaling laws. In addition, I would say that like at this valuation, they are doing a capital return program, and so I covered Apple and Nvidia for T Rowe, and I was super lucky to get that. I saw like what Apple did with the return program. It didn't like re-rate the stock from day one, but over time, consistent capital return at that valuation really expanded the multiple. I think with Nvidia, it could be a similar story where it becomes less cyclical, more durable as a result. So I think it's they're doing the right things here with the disclosure as well as like with the capital return program. And I think it's just a matter of time here.
I think right now Nvidia's trading at like 22 times forward 12-month earnings, right? I think I'll double check it. Something you just raised is really interesting, which is basically use of capital. So the frustration with Apple is like, do something. And maybe that story is changing with Apple in the handover to John Ternus. But Nvidia has gone out there and invested in the ecosystem in small increments, $2 billion here, $2 billion there. How does Tony Wong read that strategy of investing?
Yeah, I think it's really smart. I mean, I think that when you're at the frontier of technology, you have to build the ecosystem and bring up the supply chain, bring up the partners. And, NVIDIA has been really smart in terms of using their free cash flow to extend that. It also builds their ecosystem as well as furthers the technology frontier. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And you look at the deals they've done in the private markets, they've been pretty good. So like great for shareholders, great for building the ecosystem, and they have excess cash still. So I think that just goes back to like they are like this single architecture platform, and there's tremendous leverage on it. You see where the margins have gone, and so that's been their whole bet from like day one. I think is that they're an ecosystem company, right. And I think you're seeing it play through here as they build it out continuously.
We actually have a VC on later in the program whose portfolio companies, are so tied to NVIDIA, and we'll have that conversation. Just to close the loop, by the way, NVIDIA does trade 22 times forward earnings, but historically it's like nearer to 34. Jensen has this equation: more compute equals more tokens equals more revenues. Do you see those revenues coming out the other side for all of NVIDIA's customers?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at like the cloud demand, you look at pricing for GPUs. I mean, these are like old GPUs. Pricing's holding up phenomenally well, and you look at like the enterprise demand inflection that's happening, and you see it. You know, we see it in our own company. We're developing AI solutions, and it's eating up a bunch of tokens. Where we see the promise. Obviously, there's experimentation.
Hey, Tony,
but I think you're seeing that like come through.
But just real quick, like on the socials, that's what people just go nuts over, right? H100 pricing right now. Like, are you tracking that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you think about the bear case, 24 months ago, it was that like the obsolescence of NVIDIA GPUs is like 3-4 years. Well, first of all, the warranty on these things are 3 or 4 years. And then also, you have that depreciation. And so you're able to like adjust the pricing, but even so, like the demand's been so good that, we're seeing more value coming out of the older GPUs and even A100s. People are using them.
Even A100s. If you're out there running workloads on A100s, give me a call. I want to know.